Wartburg, and hence all the shoes behind me, because there's lots of places you go and lots of different ways to get there, ways to do the journey. Today we're talking about how to cross a threshold, and I'll just tell you right up front, the title in itself kind of made me a little bit nervous, because the idea of doing like a how-to sermon seems like we're setting ourselves up for something here, right? Like how to know everything about God, or how to live your life the way that Jesus would have you live it. It's like an all-encompassing topic, a little bit hard to tackle in just one sermon. And I started to think about all the different how-tos in our lives, right? I automatically thought of books, like how-to books, and I thought of the Dummies series. You know, this for dummies, that for dummies. Yeah, okay. But actually, wouldn't the biggest place for how-to stuff right now be YouTube? Yeah, there's like a ton of YouTube videos all about how to do this, how to do that. Just yesterday, I was looking up how-to videos on YouTube. We decided to rip out all our carpet. and and then we toyed with the idea of like staining the concrete and sealing it and stuff. Okay, so I'm like, how to stain concrete. I have a friend who fixed her own car. She has like no automotive experience, but the window, you know, it like got stuck in the down position or something. How to fix car window, right? Bought the part out of AutoZone, put it in herself. There's a lot of how-to videos on YouTube. Wouldn't it be awesome if I could have found a statistic about how many how-to videos are on YouTube? Yeah, I didn't. But I did find out that YouTube has been in existence for 10 years. Wow, 10 years already. In 10 years, how many hours of videos do you think have been uploaded to YouTube? 1 million? 1 billion? 1 trillion? Totally could be. Totally could be. Now, key here is I said hours of video. So actually, 1 billion was pretty close, because, I don't know, somebody's got a really good logarithm and figured this out, but they figure there's been 819,417,600 hours of video uploaded to YouTube in 10 years. Wow. And then you break it up into all those little like 1 minute, 2 minute videos. How many videos? Whoa. Actually, they say that there's 1 hour of video uploaded to YouTube every 1 second. What? That's a lot of video. That's a lot of information to take in. Right? When I was a kid, I like made this personal goal that I was going to read every book that had ever been published. Whatever, you don't know what you don't know. And but I mean, it's not even possible. It's not even close to possible for one person to watch everything that's available on YouTube. Not that you'd want to, but not even possible. I mean, you could even say that that is a lot of stuff that will go unseen. I like what I did there. That was pretty good. Because verse 1 of today's scripture says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things unseen." So faith is knowing that all those hours of YouTube are out there, even though we're not able to see all of them, right? Okay. Simplistic view. So we're talking about how to cross a threshold, and really it comes down to faith. So how do you talk about living out faith, especially when you're presented with new opportunities all the time? How do you walk into those new opportunities? So in the book, John talks about 2 separate ways of approaching a new opportunity. One he calls closed door thinking, and the other he calls open door thinking. I mean, you can probably figure out what each one of these is on your own, but I'm going to do it anyway. Closed door thinking he defines as a belief that life is full of like just a certain number, a fixed amount of gifts and talents, and that a person's worth depends on how talented they are. So how many of those gifts and talents you have is how worthy you are. Which the result of that, the bad result of that, is that getting it wrong, failing, means I'm worthless, right? Because if our worth is totally based on our ability to do stuff and get it right every time, then at some point in life, we're not going to get it right, and so we will be worthless. We will be a failure. All right, enough talk about that. Open door thinking, though, is the belief that what matters really is not raw ability, but rather growth. So growth is always possible. in open door thinking. And the goal is to grow beyond where you are today. So ultimately, faith provides like the best foundation for an open door mindset. The reason we don't have to prove our worth is that we're loved by God no matter what. The reason that we can be open to tomorrow is that God is already there. So open door mindset. The thing that really trips us up, though, as we're walking through a threshold and being able to embrace an open door mindset is being full of fear. I mean, there's a lot of ways to walk through an open door, right? You can walk through it kind of distractedly and maybe you run into the door, and you can trip over the threshold as you're walking through the door. But fear, if you're afraid to walk into a new opportunity, you're afraid to walk through the door, it can hold you back. And I would even say it kind of causes some false starts. Anybody tell, like, I've been watching the Olympics a lot. I had like a whole other sermon that was all Olympics references, and I decided not to subject you to that yet. That may come. So it causes all these false starts when you're based in fear. Now, fear can often be disguised, right? We can disguise fear as just being an everyday adult. Actually, we can disguise fear as being very responsible, right? Because if you're afraid to step into a new opportunity, you may actually start rationalize it. And you might say that, oh, I'm just being prudent. I'm not going to step into something risky because that doesn't make any sense. That's not logical. Or you may decide not to step into a new opportunity because it just goes against common sense. I mean, really, I'm perfectly safe and secure, and I've got everything set up over here. It makes absolutely no sense for me to walk into this new thing. And before you know it, if you're based in fear, not only do you not choose to walk through an open door, but you sort of get frozen, and you don't go anywhere. No new opportunities present themselves when you're stuck and frozen in fear. So there was okay, so you do get some Olympic references. Here we go. There was actually a commercial that was on in between the NBC footage of the gymnastics about, well, it was a voiceover from Simone Biles' mom. So Simone Biles is the women's gymnast who is just, I mean, like out of this world phenomenal. Anybody been watching her? Oh my gosh. You know, they're saying she's like the best gymnast of all time, and she's just totally like unbeatable. Now, I am not caught up in my DVR, so no spoilers, please. But from what I have seen, she is unbeatable. She's crazy, crazy good. She's worked really hard to get where she is. But her mom does this commercial and talks about how when Simone was like 8 or something like that, she came to her mom and said, I'm going to compete for my country someday. I'm going to be in the Olympics. And her mom talks about sort of like that mental process that she went through as a parent. And she had that choice of closed door mindset or open door mindset. Because honestly, it's almost safer to go with the closed door mindset and tell her daughter, oh, the possibility of you actually being on an Olympic team, not so good, dear. Let's go read some books, or something, to protect her child. But she said she made a conscious decision to not do that and to encourage Simone and say, okay, let's do it. Let's work towards that goal. And to back her up and not bring in that sense of fear and that sense of closing off the door out of fear. Then there's some other nuanced sorts of fear. There's one that John Ortberg refers to as FOMO. So no more, mo. And then FOMO stands for fear of missing out. It's kind of a nuanced fear, right? Like, you're not really afraid of moving forward. It's like afraid of moving forward in the wrong direction. Fear of missing out. Or there's another way of thinking of this that might be a little more familiar. It's called buyer's remorse. Anybody ever had buyer's remorse? Yeah, I know. Buyer's remorse you can get when you're shopping, right? Or more accurately, after you're done shopping. You look back on some purchase. Oh, why did I do that? That doesn't really fit in the budget. I should have chosen something else. And you end up beating yourself up about it, whether there's something you can do about it or not. But buyer's remorse can hit us not just financially. It can hit us in any sort of decision that we make. So, all right, so I tried to track different decisions that I was making this week and judge whether or not I had any buyer's remorse. So here's some examples. You can watch for different types of buyer's remorse in your life. So I signed the kids up for like an extracurricular activity this week. And, they're not at an age where it's real obvious which thing is like their thing. So I kind of took a stab at it, and I enrolled them in gymnastics. Told you, Olympic fever. So they're enrolled in gymnastics, and no sooner have I signed them up than I'm going, oh my gosh, was that the right thing? Like, what if my kid is supposed to be a soccer star? Or what if they're supposed to play softball or play piano? Or like, oh, what if I totally messed it all up? And this is crazy. They've had one lesson. How would I even know which one is the right one? But already I'm carrying around this idea that I didn't walk through the right door. Yeah, and it's probably going to affect the road beyond just that first lesson if I continue to carry that around. Okay, so another buyer's remorse that I constantly have is what I call Fridays. Oh, Fridays. It's this blessing and curse that I have where Friday is my day off, but my family is like at work and school, and so I always try to like jam pack my day with all this stuff that needs to get done. I make lists, people, of all the possibilities, the open doors of Fridays, right? And I know you're laughing because you've done this. I try to tackle as many of the possibilities as possible, and inevitably I do like one, and then I'm really upset with myself for missing out on all the other stuff I should have done. Maybe I shouldn't have done that one thing. I should have done these things over here. Oh my gosh, and then you end up carrying that around, which then the next Friday comes around and I'm already feeling like a failure. Isn't that just ridiculous? Yeah. All right, then this is one that I probably shouldn't tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Picking the scripture verses. So the way that we do this is usually it's a collaborative thing and working with staff and worship leaders, and we all sit down and we plan like 6 months or a year ahead of time, picking themes and scriptures. And then I get into the week that I'm going to use that theme or scripture, and I look at it and go, maybe I should have chosen this other little piece. Or maybe we should have skipped all the way to the Old Testament instead of using the New Testament. And maybe that's like not the right verse that we're supposed to hear this week. Oh God, what if I led them wrong? Told you, I shouldn't have told you about that one. Buyer's remorse can affect us in really deep ways. I mean, what shadows of doubt follow you around? Here's the thing though. No one responds when God opens a door or calls us to something new with, I'm ready. Nobody says, I know exactly what I'm doing. Let's go. Not even in the Bible. All the characters in the Bible who are called to something new, who are called to something risky, they all answer first off with something like, are you kidding me? I don't think so. Moses says, I am not eloquent. Seriously, who am I to speak to a group of people? Gideon says, did you not notice I'm the underdog? My clan is super weak. I cannot save Israel. Ask somebody stronger. Abraham says, I'm too old. Jeremiah says, I'm too young. Esther says, if I go in there, I'm going to die. Pish posh, Esther, come on. Nobody says, okay, Lord, I'm ready, until they do. Until they can let go of a closed door thinking and step into a new attitude. So in the book, John Ortberg talks about how it's actually better to walk through the wrong door with your best self than the right door with your wrong self. That your attitude actually changes what's on the other side of the door. So I call this embracing the threshold. Embracing, well, I don't know what's on the other side, but I can choose to walk across the threshold with the best attitude, the best me that I can possibly do that with. There was a great story. I was listening to a podcast. It's an NPR one called Invisibilia. Pastor Asa made me do it. He's obsessed with Invisibilia. But this is a great story. It talks about something called flip the script. So there's a few families who've gotten together for dinner, and I think they do this often because they like rotate each other's houses. This particular night, they were going to eat in the backyard of the folks who were hosting the dinner. So they set up the backyard, and it's a beautiful night. You know, they put the tables out and tablecloths, and they decorate it all nice. And then the family that was hosting like put up some lights, so the whole backyard is twinkling, although they probably didn't even need it because they talk about how the stars are out, and it's just gorgeous. Temperature perfect. Food is delicious. Wine is delicious. It's one of those nights. Perfect moment, right? Until everything changed. Everything changed. The guy who's telling the story first, he says, I was sitting at the table, and I'm looking at my daughter and my wife sitting there, and then all of our friends around the table, and I saw out of the corner of my eye, now this is shocking, but stay with me, I saw the corner of my eye a gun barrel coming in over the table. And I said, oh no. It was a man who'd wandered into the backyard and wanted to hold them up at gunpoint. So he pointed the gun first at this guy's wife, and then he pointed it at the lady across the table, and he said, give me all your money. There's only one problem with this. They didn't have any money on them. They're out in the backyard eating dinner. Who brings cash? So they tried to explain this to him, but the guy got more agitated. And so one of the women at the table took a deep breath, and she did what we call flip the script. She said, you know, it's a really nice night, and we're just enjoying a meal. Can I pour you a glass of wine? And to her shock, the man actually took it. And he sat down with them and started to sip the wine. And so they started some light conversation. I mean, that's a little awkward with a gun on the table. And they sat and they talked about who knows what for like 30 minutes. And the guy relaxed and he put the gun down. And after about 30 minutes, he said something that just shocked the whole table. He said, you know, I think I've come to the wrong place. And they all just sat there in silence. And he said, could I get a hug? And one of the ladies stood up from the table and walked over and gave him a hug. And he said, could we all hug? So they all got up and hugged. And after the hug was done, he took his glass of wine in one hand and the gun in the other and walked back out of the backyard into the darkness. Now, the first thing, obviously, they all did was run inside and lock the door. And thank God that they were alive. The next morning, when they went outside to clean everything up, they found in the alleyway a wine glass sitting very carefully next to the fence. Not like thrown and broken, forgotten. No, like intentionally placed at the fence. Flip the script. We all have that capability of flipping the script of whatever mantra it is that's on the inside. When that negative thought comes in, we have the option of flipping it. We all have the option not necessarily to change the opportunities before us or pick them or craft them or decide our circumstances. But we have the option to flip the script on the way that we react to them and the way that we step into them. In the end, it really is all about faith. Being convicted of the things that we cannot even see. And that's how we cross the threshold. We'll continue our time of worship by the giving of our tithes and our offerings.